Hello, I'm Annette Young and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up, as Guatemala votes in a new president, we take a look at a film about Guatemalan women fighting to end the climate of impunity in one of the world's most violent countries. Also, we talk to Heather McGhee from the American liberal think tank Demos on whether in fact feminism has a class problem. And against all odds, the two female entrepreneurs here in France whose cafe offers much more than just good food. But we begin in Guatemala, where a former TV comedian with no experience in government has won the runoff vote in the nation's presidential election. Jimmy Morales got more than double the votes of ex-First Lady Sandra Torres. But Morales is not popular with women's groups who accuse him of sexism. Still, he's insisting he will clean up corruption along with the legal system. Yet this in a country where sex crimes often go unpunished. One documentary is attempting to bring the issue to light. Our reporters met a subject of the film who's trying to get her life back on track in America.
8 years ago, Astrid was kidnapped and gang raped in Guatemala, a nightmare that she recounts in the documentary La Prenda.
El 26 de julio del 2007, yo tenía apenas 14 años. Yo salí a comprar un material para hacer tareas de mi hermana y mío, cuando sentí que dos personas me agarraron. A la hora que me quería levantar me dolía demasiado el vientre y solo me decía, oh sí, lo disfrutamos tanto porque no solo fui yo, fuimos todos.
This type of crime is common in the Central American country where a woman is kidnapped every day.
Ahí fue.
While Astrid survived by paying a ransom, Kelly was found dead after her parents went to the
Y con dos
police.
tiros en el ojo.
En Guatemala la diferencia entre la muerte de un hombre y de una mujer es que a una mujer se le hace sufrir antes de la muerte. Se le viola, después se le mutila.
According to nonprofit groups, 98% of crimes in Guatemala go unpunished. The Swiss director of the documentary, who now lives in the U.S., describes a country racked by violence.
Guatemala is a macho and patriarchal society. It goes back 500 years. It's a society that's long lived with the Civil War, when rape was considered a war weapon, and it rubs off on the justice system.
After receiving new kidnapping threats, Astrid fled Guatemala and arrived illegally in the U.S. While she now feels safe, her kidnappers have never been arrested.
I hope to go back to my country one day, but it needs to change, with more justice and calm.
Astrid is now focused on learning English and singing in her church choir. Like her, hundreds of Guatemalan women victims of violence are now seeking asylum in the U.S.
Now, as the US heads into another presidential campaign, economic inequality has become a buzz phrase by both the Democrats and the Republicans. And as the gap between those who have and those who don't increases by the day in the US and other developed nations, it appears women are coming off second best. With me today is Heather McGhee, the president of the American liberal think tank Demos. Heather, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
We're witnessing, aren't we, the hollowing out of the middle class, and again, not just in the States, but across the developed world. How is it that women are being left behind?
Well, in many ways, you can think about the fact that women really entered the workforce a generation ago en masse, and it was about that same time that the workforce became a much less stable, much more precarious place to be. So it's become harder to work your way into the middle class, to get a secure education without going into lots of debt, and to build assets and have a secure retirement and constant health care. And that's all been really the hallmark of what's now kind of a women's economy. economy. Women's labor force participation across the developed nations is way up, and yet the security of those jobs is way down.
Because they're relying a lot on part-time and casual work, aren't they?
That's right. It's part-time and casual work, which on the one hand, the positive side of that is that it offers everybody, women and men, more flexibility to be able to stay home with aging parents, with young people. But at the same time, there's also a lot less security and control in those jobs. In the U.S., we refer to it as the on-demand economy, where workers really have very little control over their schedules. They're really trying to piece together enough income to make ends meet, and nothing is really adding up.
And when you factor in childcare, that becomes a real issue, doesn't it?
That's right. In the United States, childcare costs more than college tuition in over half of the states. It's one of the #1 sort of sleeper issues I think that you're going to see in this next election.
Are both political parties actually addressing these issues, do you think?
No, unfortunately not. I mean, really, if you look at the Republican debates in the U.S. right now, they're really focused on issues of immigration, on issues of sort of day-to-day political scandals, and they aren't really actually getting to the heart of what is keeping American families up at night, which is, can I keep a roof over my head, save for the future, afford to put my child through college? So right now, the Democrats have an advantage, at least in the fact that they're addressing the issues that are most important to American voters.
Now, Heather, you've said that the next wave of the women's movement has to have at its heart economic justice. What do you actually mean by that?
If you really think about the women's movement over the past 2 generations, it was very much led by the most educated women in society who were right up there at the glass looking in and said, I want exactly what my husband has. And so that's been a really important part of shaping feminism. And yet right now, if you look at the majority of women, of working women who are struggling to make ends meet, their issues are not about what Sheryl Sandberg calls leaning in, right? Most working class women are leaning in so far they're nearly falling over. They're working so hard.
Just to survive.
Just to survive. And so some of the issues of equity at the top, of being able to be in the boardroom, are not really the common everyday issues of feminism. So I think that the next wave of feminism has to sort of return to its working class roots and really think about these issues of childcare, of family leave, of minimum wage.
So, from what you're saying, feminism has a class problem.
I was asked that question once, and I responded in an essay. I think it does. At least in the U.S., it has a class problem and it has a race problem. And in many ways, that's because some of the organizations that are sort of carrying the flag for feminism, like with many organizations, they're funded by wealthy women who have time to give and serve on the boards of these organizations. And those women are very far away socially from the women who work as cashiers, making $7.25 an hour. And there's got to be that connection and more of a solidarity across class lines.
Heather, I want to come back to you in a moment. But here in France, there are some women who have successfully fought against social norms. 2 women have joined forces to make their childhood dream a reality. Against all odds, the French-Algerian duo have set up a restaurant not just to empower themselves, but also to change the reputation of their impoverished neighbourhood. Sanam Chantier has more.
La Guérinière, a district peppered with social housing buildings. Today, amidst the grey concrete structures, there's a burst of colour, which gave a new lease of life to the area a year ago. It's a restaurant set up by 2 women, and it's been hailed a success by the local residents.
It's great because it's giving this place some life. There's nothing else here. We now come here almost every day. It's our meeting place.
The restaurant is the brainchild of Zahra and Saida, who left Algeria in the year 2000. One was unemployed, and the other had just completed a PhD in American civilization. The one thing they had in common was a dream for a brighter future.
The idea behind setting up this business was to work for ourselves, to be the bosses of our own company. So this was a dream come true.
But their personal success wasn't the duo's only incentive. The entrepreneurs also wanted to change the area's reputation.
It hurts to hear people say we won't go to La Guérinière. In fact, there are people that work not too far from here, and thanks to us, they've discovered the neighborhood. Before, this was just a route on the way to Paris. Now they actually come to our restaurant. And I ask them, were you assaulted around here? And they say no.
Zahra and Saida were awarded for their initiative last year. As a result, they now have an advertising budget. The two women hope this will enable them not just to build up their business, but also their local area.
Now, watching that report with me here in the studio is Heather McGhee, the president of the American liberal think tank Demos. Heather, what those women are doing is exactly what you've been talking about.
That's right. It's really a beautiful story, actually, that really brings home the idea that women can have their own sense of liberation and self-determination, and also do in a way that, frankly, might be a little bit different than the traditional form, which takes the idea of the community into the form of capitalism. We're seeing, actually, in the U.S. that women of color are one of the leading groups that's starting their own businesses and treating their workers more fairly, recognizing the importance of work-life balance and high wages and stable flexible schedules.
So it's really a change in the way of looking at how to make money.
I think we're entering a new period of capitalism right now, where the heavily financialized capitalism that is very extractive both of our environment and of our human resources has been so discredited by the financial crash and by the sustainability crisis that there's an opening right now for a new vision of capitalism that has more sustainable values and that treats the community as an asset and a resource.
Heather McGhee, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page. That's France24 51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far. And please do keep those comments coming in. Until our next program, bye for now.